approximately 11 a.m., Tallahassee Police Department was called for a reported shooting.
The driver's side window is all bashed in, and he's got blood all over his head. He's not responding to me. I think you need to hurry.
Professor Markell was shot while he was still sitting in his car.
There was a shooting. Daniel, all right, has been taken to the hospital. He's not going to survive.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Our second speaker is Dan Markell.
He was very well known, very strong opinions.
The paper is about the tissue connecting democratic citizenship with...
Professor Markell was excitable, he was engaging. I remember just sitting out on the couch thinking, like, this doesn't make sense.
You can see through the surveillance that he's going to get his morning workout in. Professor Markell goes back to his car, gets in the car, and leaves. As soon as he pulls out, you see the Prius follow along behind him. Latin kings are involved in narcotics and then, violent crimes that go along with it. There's either a personal connection for some reason, or they were hired, and they were hired because of their criminal affiliations. What's their relationship with Professor Markell? To put the puzzle together, you have to find the pieces first.
Lower County 911, what's the address of your emergency room? Okay, your wife is in a bar, you said she's unresponsive?
This is what he's going to tell you.
How to get out of that situation.
And I grabbed the gun.
Trying to find the first place to put a body.
No, sir. The only thing they could do was kill him.
You want to say anything? We, the jury, and to find the defendant.
Get him sent an ambulance in a hurry.
Tell me exactly what happened.
The garage door was up, and I thought the gentleman was backing out, but he never backed out.
It was a call of a shooting with an injured person.
The driver's side window is all bashed in, and he's got blood all over his head. He's not responding to me. I think you need to hurry.
The victim was a law school professor at Florida State University, Daniel Markell.
Full crime scene, investigators had come out. Professor Markell was shot while he was still sitting in his car.
He was on the phone with music teacher Stuart Schlosser.
And he said, hold on a second. There's someone in my driveway that's unfamiliar to me. I remember it was a loud sound which sounded either like a grunt or something. It sounded like a person making the sound, but it didn't sound like a good sound.
Our forensic unit collected numerous pieces of evidence from the scene.
More likely that it was a targeted event, not a random robbery. You start looking at known associations, family members, and that.
Within hours, Tallahassee police brought in Markell's recently divorced wife, Wendy Adelson.
The old rule is everyone's a suspect until they're ruled out. So you start with the closest relationships first.
There was a shooting at your home, or your ex-husband's home. Daniel, all right, has been taken to the hospital. He's not going to survive.
Oh my God.
Okay?
Certainly, she seems very, very surprised and caught off guard at the news, and certainly not like she was expecting it or it was something that she was aware of.
What happened?
Well, before we get into everything, I have to establish where you were and who you were with and so forth.
Okay.
Okay? And then once we've established all that, I can give you more details.
Okay.
Do you understand why I wanted you to come here before I discuss this?
Oh my God. I'm sorry.
It's okay. No, you have nothing to be sorry about.
I don't understand. How did this happen?
Our second speaker is Dan Markell.
A Harvard graduate, Markell was a superstar professor at the law school.
He was very well known. He had very strong opinions.
The paper is about the tissue connecting democratic citizenship with retributive justice. And the argument...
Professor Markell was excitable, he was engaging, he always had an answer. I remember just sitting out on the couch thinking, like, this doesn't make sense.
Do you know anybody that would have a beef against your ex-husband?
He's
was, oh God.
I hate to ask it now, but I have to do it now. You understand, right?
I understand. He had friends. He always meant well, but he would sometimes rub people the wrong way.
Okay.
But not anyone who would do something like this.
All right.
Oh my God, poor kids. I know a lot of people didn't really love him, but I don't know anyone who would do something like this.
Well, we're still trying to determine, what happened and how it happened.
I mean, we've been separated for 2 years, so I don't know,
Right.
If he had something going on, I wouldn't know about it, but...
And detectives soon learned that Daniel Markel's divorce from Wendy, who was also a law school professor, had been highly contentious as the two lawyers fought it out in court.
I think you could reasonably conclude that he was going to be rabid, and they both kind of were just at each other's throats.
And even after the divorce was final, custody issues for their two sons remained in flux, with Markel refusing to let Wendy move to the family home in South Florida with the children.
After we got divorced, I wanted to move to South Florida, and I filed a petition to relocate in the court, and the court said no. So,
because of the kids.
Because of the, I mean, yeah. So you can always leave. You just can't leave with your kids.
So that fight had been fought, and it was firm and fixed. She was not going to relocate those children unless Dan consented to it.
But Wendy's family, including her mother, Donna, was still trying to find a way to make it happen.
Donna at this point had been very, very vocal about the idea that there was an expectation that they get back to South Florida with the children and Wendy. She decided, to start to write Wendy very extreme emails about any kind of way to get Danny to agree, including bribing him.
And suggesting she have the boys baptized in the Catholic Church or dressed in Hitler Youth outfits to infuriate their father, who was Jewish.
Can you imagine setting up young children that they should be Catholic and provoke him with Hitler outfits?
My parents are, very angry towards him. But even when they're around my kids, they would never say a bad word about my kid's father. They're really, really careful about that. They just like him, but they know he's the father of my kids. They would never do that.
Right.
I don't know who would be angry enough with him.
Well, that's what I have to find out.
To do something like this.
Okay, I don't
think...
think...
You don't know who it is?
No.
Danny didn't treat me very well, and I'm so scared that maybe someone did this. Not because they hate Danny, but because they thought this was good somehow.
Oh, are you saying that you think maybe one of your friends would have done something like this?
Who would do this?
I don't know. That's why you're here, and that's why we're talking. Would you ever ask someone to do something like this?
Not in a million years.
Okay. Do you think someone would do this for your benefit without asking you?
No.
What good does it serve?
I made my brother, the one, his name's Charlie, the one I'm really close to, he makes a lot of jokes in bad taste, and it was a joke he made. He bought the TV for me this morning that got broken, and I was talking to him about whether it made sense to pay to fix it or whether I should get a new one, and it was always his joke that, like, he knew Danny treated me badly, and it was always his joke. He said, I looked into hiring a hitman, and it was cheaper to get you this TV, so instead I got you this TV. I mean, he would never. He's my big brother, and he's been taking care of me since I was little, but he would never. And I told that to the repair guy this morning. It's cheaper than a hitman. It was my divorce present.
That raises eyebrows, but, most families joke around. But now when something happens, it provides a completely different context.
Would you think that this guy, Charlie, would even be capable of doing something like this?
No.
It's just talk.
He's the joker.
Daniel Markel died the following day, but it would be years before police could figure out who killed him and why.
The reward in this case has been up to $3,000 at this time for information leading to anybody's arrest that's connected to this case.
Well, everybody was suspicious early on, right?
Professor Markel's mother, Ruth, thought his murder might be somehow connected to the law school.
In my own head, there was a couple of theories. The first one could have been a student. I did tell the police. Professional jealousy. At this point, Danny was really, really out in the front. And so if anybody had any other aspirations, and maybe they felt he's taking up all the space.
The mystery surrounding the murder of a distinguished law school professor made news around the world.
We got phone calls from all over the country and even from Europe, trying to help on his behalf.
But the key call came from a neighbor across the street in Tallahassee.
The neighborhood said that they'd seen a light-colored Prius in either right in front of the driveway or in the driveway right around the time of the shooting. One of the investigators finds the footage off the city bus that shows a Prius going into the neighborhood about the right time frame, and then actually getting caught on video coming out of the neighborhood, all in that same time frame within a few minutes span. I can still remember the excitement because it was a big break.
The quality of the video didn't allow detectives to make out the license plate.
But the video did provide, it showed that they had a toll pass, a sun pass in Florida, and then one of those side view mirrors was aftermarket. And we could see that it clearly had been replaced.
So now the search was on, up and down the 265-mile-long Florida Turnpike, where the sun pass is primarily used, looking for a Prius with an odd side view mirror.
Looking at literally, tens of thousands of transactions that they looked at.
It took more than a year, but ultimately led investigators to a small rental car agency in North Miami.
This was such a small place where the receipt for the rental was actually handwritten.
The Prius had been rented 4 days before the murder by a customer listed as Luis Rivera. ATM bank surveillance showed Rivera behind the wheel of the Prius, and seated next to him, a man identified as Sigfredo Garcia.
We got the vehicle, we've got them traveling. The two of them, we started doing backgrounds.
It turns out Garcia, known on the street as Tuto, has a long criminal record, and Rivera was well known to law enforcement as a top leader of the Latin Kings street gang in Miami.
Latin Kings are involved in narcotics and then, violent crimes that go along with it. How do we find a link back to Professor Markel? There's either a personal connection for some reason, or they were hired because of their criminal, background or affiliations.
On the morning of the murder, the Prius is seen in the parking lot of Professor Markel's gym.
He's going to get his morning workout in. It certainly doesn't appear of a person that's afraid or he's nervous or aware that anything, of this magnitude is about to happen and change his family's lives. You can see through the surveillance that, when Professor Markel goes back to his car, gets in the car and leaves, as soon as he pulls out, you see the Prius follow along behind him. Our investigators start working on the technology side, and you start tracking and looking at commonality of phone signals off of cell phone towers.
And they tracked one key call from Garcia's phone to a dentistry business in South Florida, the Adelson Institute.
My name is Dr. Charlie Adelson, and I am a periodontist, owner, and co-partner with my father, Dr. Harvey Adelson.
Wendy's brother and father. And the calls from Garcia were going to a woman on the payroll at the dental office, Katie Megbanwa.
Katie is the mother of Garcia's children, but is also one of Charlie's girlfriends. Now we've got Garcia and Rivera with Katie, with the Adelsons. She's kind of the linchpin that brings the two groups together.
Yes, Adelson for. She's going to be wearing green, black, and white top, and she's going to be wearing black shorts.
So now, with the help of the FBI, the Adelson family was put under surveillance, watching as Wendy and her parents took the two sons to school, hoping to catch them making contact with the suspected killers.
We have eyes on her in the playground. Looks like she's getting the kids now.
They did something that's called wiggling the wire, which is a term used to do something that creates the people, the subjects, to maybe have conversations on the phone.
Excuse me, Mrs. Adelson? How you doing? Just want to give you this. Listen. Good, don't be scared.
An undercover FBI agent approached Wendy's mother, Donna Adelson, with what agents call a bump, posing as the brother of Luis Rivera, who is now in prison on an unrelated charge.
And I want to let you know that my brother, he's incarcerated. He helped your family with this problem you guys had up north. And we want to make sure that he's going through some rough times. We want to make sure that you take care of what he's going through, the way you're taking care of Katie and Tuzo. Well, this will explain it. Thank you.
The note included a news clipping and a threat. I want the money now, or I'm going after the $100,000, which was the latest reward offer.
Then we get the phone call that we're hoping for.
The FBI had wiretaps in place on the Adelson family phones.
Hey, how are you?
Okay.
Good.
There's a conversation between Donna and Charlie on just saying that they need to talk and get together.
Who was the letter addressed to?
Okay.
To you.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Was it, can I ask you, is someone blackmailing you?
Well, it's always a good possibility.
Most people, if they're truly innocent of any wrongdoings at that point, probably would have been calling the police going, hey.
And then Charlie asked Katie to meet him at a Miami restaurant.
Pretty much everybody in the restaurant was like a law enforcement, and the waiter was an agent, everybody was an agent, everything was recorded.
The audio was poor quality, and the FBI had to use special techniques to enhance it.
We certainly didn't get the jackpot that we were hoping for, but again, there's incriminating statements that in the context certainly shows that we're on the right trail.
I don't know. If a badge comes up to you, tell them how they I'll search for it. If they want to charge us, charge me. If not, I don't talk to cops. Sorry.
And now please welcome to the stage Miss Wendy Adelson.
It wasn't long before Wendy tried to resume a normal life, moving back to South Florida, working as an advocate for immigration rights.
So different states are doing different things, and that's still what they are doing today.
It was within days that she relocated. I just couldn't believe that life is normal for her. You know, if the father of your children has just been murdered, it really didn't sit well with me.
And Wendy moved to change the children's last names from Markel to Adelson and wouldn't let Dan's parents see the two boys.
Nothing. Birthday gifts, we would send whatever. And I'm in pain already from losing a child, which is awful, and we never heard anything.
The moment that she changed those children's last names and robbed them of their father's last names, that's a pretty aggressive move that really doesn't pass the smell test.
And investigators were becoming increasingly convinced that what Wendy had called a bad joke by her brother, Charlie,
Hiring a hitman, and it was cheaper to get you this TV.
Was no joke at all. Her boyfriend at the time of the murder, Jeffrey Lacasse, had decided to come forward.
Okay. She says, Charlie.
Charlie did actually look into having him killed last summer.
Last summer.
and he was told it would cost $15,000.
This is just paraphrased, but I want to make sure I understand. Charlie did look into having
Danny killed last summer. It would cost about $15,000, and that's not exactly word for word, but that's pretty close to what she said.
And she's saying, I'm stuck here unless something happens to Danny. Now, this is huge to me. This is like, my brother's already checked into it, and it costs this much.
Yeah,
is it like this is still available and open, or 15 grand is too much we're too cheap?
His family's rich, and it's nothing.
No, I know, but
he's gonna pay cash at his office.
And Lacasse said after the murder, Wendy and her brother, Charlie, had a celebration.
She tells me that. She says we went out for what Charlie called a celebration dinner.
Because Danny's gone.
Mm-hmm. Hip, hip, hooray. When she was just in town, she was cracking jokes about Danny getting his head blown off.
A final piece of the puzzle came from an inmate in a Florida federal prison.
So this all happened before 12 noon?
Yeah. Before 12.
Luis Rivera, the Latin Kings leader, already serving time on an unrelated charge, agreed to cooperate with police, laying out how Professor Markel was murdered in Tallahassee.
So when he came out of the gym, I followed him home. We met him right in the garage.
He said that Garcia pulled the trigger. That's what they went there to do.
Garcia jumps out, goes on the car where he's driving. I think Markel was on the phone that day. Shot him twice, got in the car, we left. Kid's driving.
Obviously, it was huge for us and gives us enough, legal authority to really go after the two of them, Katie and Garcia.
We have arrested Sigfredo Garcia for the murder of Professor Daniel Markel. This is still an active criminal investigation. I would ask for your patience as we continue to move forward with this investigation.
Both Garcia and then Katie Magbanwa were charged with first-degree murder and put on trial together, with Luis Rivera the key witness for the prosecution.
So you knew it was a job in Tallahassee and you assumed it was a robbery. Did you learn something additional about what it was on the way to Tallahassee?
Yeah, on the way coming up, like halfway there, he said we're gonna have to kill the man.
You said you were gonna have to kill the man?
Yeah.
And what was the second part of what you said?
For some kids.
For some kids. All right, anything else? What did that mean to you, kill the man for some kids?
That's for a lady. I guess the lady wanted her kids back.
Fredo Garcia, we the jury find is...
Ultimately, both Garcia and Magbanwa were convicted for the murder of the professor.
I do adjudicate you guilty and sentence you to life in prison.
And Magbanwa, facing the same plight, accepted a plea deal and agreed to testify against her one-time boyfriend and boss, Charlie Adelson.
It's the 5,000-piece puzzle. Keep trying to build as much together as you can. Who provided the payment? Where did the money come from? When you start looking at bank accounts and things like that.
Well, obviously Charlie knew something happened. Therefore, when that happened, he was supposed to have that money ready. Because he knew that he had to pay.
So that was the understanding once it was done that he was to pay right away. You knew that you were going to get a portion of that money for taking care of this problem for Charlie. Is that correct?
Yes.
Charles Adelson was arrested today at his home in South Florida. We're thrilled to be able to announce that another person that is culpable in this case has been arrested. It's alleged that he hired the hitman, and that's his role as a principal to the murder, the conspiracy, and the solicitation.
We begin with the trial of Charlie Adelson, the latest alleged accomplice in the complicated murder for hire of FSU law professor Dan Markel.
Here we are. We waited 9 years.
Dan Markel's mother, Ruth, and his ex-wife, Wendy Adelson, were both in the courtroom on the first day.
The scene in the courtroom is very hard when you know the person. It's no more speculation. This is now reality.
The reason that we're here today is because the defendant in this case, Charlie Adelson, hired a hitman to kill his former brother-in-law, Dan Markel. This murder was set into motion because back in 2014, the defendant's family, the Adelson family, had a big problem. And that big problem was Dan Markel. And the solution to that problem was this defendant. This defendant was the solution to that problem because he had a girlfriend with connections to the type of people who were willing and capable of pointing a gun at a complete stranger and pulling the trigger. He took the life of a loving father of 2 little boys, and he caused a lifetime of grief for Dan Markel's loved ones. And at the conclusion of this evidence, y'all will be convinced beyond any reasonable doubt that this defendant is guilty. Thank y'all.
Is the defense prepared to give its opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
Now let me start by saying the obvious. The murder of Professor Markel was a tragedy. The world lost a brilliant legal mind. His family lost a son and a brother. It was inexcusable, despicable, evil. But what I'm going to tell you today is what actually happened. You will see that Charlie Adelson had nothing to do with the murder of Professor Markel.
And defense lawyer Dan Rushbaum was quick to deal with the video the jury would soon see, Wendy describing her brother's joke.
I looked into hiring a hitman and it was cheaper to get you this TV. So.
See, Charlie has a really bad history of telling bad jokes. What you're gonna learn is that in the spring of 2014, Katie heard the hitman joke, and she got some ideas in her head. The state itself has called Catherine Magbanawa the mastermind, and that's exactly what she was. She was talking too much. And her friend and these people learned about the problems that his family was having with Professor Markel. And they got it in their minds to do this. You will learn that Charlie Adelson was told if he didn't pay within the next 48 hours, he or one of his family members would be next. Does that sound like a murder for hire? Or does that sound like extortion?
So the defense says that Katie was the mastermind, that she plotted to extort money out of Charlie. We haven't heard this theory before.
The state calls Wendy Adelson. And are you here today pursuant to a subpoena?
Yes, ma'am.
Wendy and her mother, Donna, had both been named as unindicted co-conspirators in the murder charge, and Wendy was given limited immunity for her testimony.
Did your brother ever mention hiring a hitman to kill Dan Markel?
No.
Quote, it was always his joke. He said, I looked into hiring a hitman and it was cheaper to get you this TV. Is that what he said?
That was a joke that he made, yes.
You suspected your brother could have been a part of this, right?
I suspected lots of people could have been a part of it.
Do you want the culpable parties held accountable for murdering the father of your children?
Absolutely. I'm grateful they're already in jail.
But not if it's your family.
It's not my family.
I mean, somebody hired him, right?
Not necessarily.
Somebody paid him.
I learned something this morning.
Yeah, me too. No further questions.
You may examine when you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Were you in a conspiracy with any members of your family to kill Professor Markel?
No.
Now, Charlie made that joke many times, right?
He did.
He never told you he actually looked into hiring a hitman, right?
No.
Did you think he was serious?
No.
Ma'am, please say your name.
Catherine Magbanawa.
What are you in custody for?
The murder.
And is that the murder of Dan Markel?
Yes, ma'am.
Who came up with the idea to kill Dan Markel?
Charlie.
And did you know anybody that could harm someone?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Who was that?
Sigfredo.
How was the money packaged when you got it? I think you said you got it the next morning.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, were they $100 bills or something else?
They were $100 bills, and there was some 20s and 50s.
The night that you went to get the money, did you threaten Charlie Adelson in any way?
No, ma'am, I did not.
Did you try to extort money out of him?
No, ma'am, I did not.
No further questions.
Cross-examination.
Is it true that you were the mastermind behind Professor Markel's murder?
No, sir. That was Charlie.
I'm sure it was. Now, you keep on saying that the state hasn't promised you anything, right?
Yes, sir.
But you're hoping that they're going to help you, right?
Of course. I want to see my children again.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Adelson, have you made a decision concerning whether you wish to testify?
Yes, Your Honor.
What is that decision?
I will testify.
Is the defense ready to call its next witness?
Yes, Your Honor. We called Charlie Adelson.
You know, in the world of criminal defense, you very rarely want to put your client up in a high-profile case where he's already been vilified for years.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
I do, sir.
You may take your seat.
So that is a very tricky position to take as a criminal defense attorney, and they took that chance.
Charlie, let's start with the most important question. Did you cause the death of Professor Dan Markel?
Absolutely no.
Did you hire anyone to kill him?
No.
Now, do you recall making a joke that buying her a TV was cheaper than hiring a hitman? Something to that effect.
Yeah, I said it as a complete joke and it was stupid, but I do that a lot.
Just to be clear, did you ever look into hiring a hitman?
No, never.
And Adelson said he had no idea that Markel had been killed until Katie told him.
And she said, listen, this is all my fault.
What did you say?
I'm like, what are you talking about? And she's like, my friend killed Dan, and he wants to be paid $250,000. She started telling me, like, I'm so sorry, this is all my fault, but I didn't know any of this was gonna happen. And I'm like, Katie, I'm not gonna be part of it. Like, I'm not gonna be part of paying for a murder. This is insane. And she's like, look, if you don't pay in 48 hours, they will kill you. And I said, Katie, I feel like I'm getting extorted now. I don't have that much in my safe. I do have a lot. And I said, come take a look. And I walked over to my safe. I opened it up. And I'm like, here, take a look. And I took it out in piles and put it on the dresser next to us. And I said, go ahead and count. That's not $250,000.
And did she count it?
Yes, she did.
How much money did she count?
$138,000.
What happened next?
She asked me, she said, well, can you pay like $3,000 a month? And I said, yeah, I can do that.
And why didn't you go to the police?
I thought if I went to the police that they'd kill me.
Do you love your nephews?
Of course.
Would you ever take their father away from them?
No, never. Never in a million years.
To me, he had rehearsed and re-rehearsed and re-rehearsed his script. It was clearly scripted. He stuck to it.
Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Do you agree that the only problem with having an explanation for everything is that there's just so many explanations?
There's no explanation. I explained what happened.
Did you have any contact with the thugs that were getting your money for 2 years?
No.
Did anybody put a gun to your head?
I was told that I would be killed in 48 hours if I didn't pay up.
I heard you say that, but my question is, did anyone put a gun to your head?
You're asking me, did anyone pull a gun on me?
That's what I asked you.
Is that your question? No, nobody pulled a firearm on me.
All right, so when Catherine Magbanua came to you on July 18th and said, open the safe and give me all your money, she was not armed.
She was not carrying a gun that day,
And
no.
in fact, she stayed the night with you, didn't she?
Yes, she did.
And didn't exit your house with your $138,000 until the next day, right?
Correct.
So this woman, an extortionist, is going to do you a solid by negotiating with the Latin Kings for you to get on a payment plan for the extortion. Isn't that what happened?
Yes, she said, because I didn't have the money, she said, asked me if I could pay $3,000 a month in 2014, and I said, yes, I can.
Are you mad that Wendy hasn't been charged and you have?
No, I'm mad that I got charged for a crime that I didn't commit.
Do you agree that this was a first-degree murder?
Do I agree?
Planned, premeditated?
The people who killed him planned on killing him, yeah.
Do you think everyone involved should be convicted?
I think everyone involved should be convicted.
Even the person that hired the hit?
I think anybody who played a role in it, but I wasn't a part of it.
Do your nephews deserve to know the whole truth about who killed their father?
Yeah, now they do.
Do Danny's parents deserve to know what happened to their son?
Absolutely.
And you say you knew. I mean, you now say you knew a big piece of what happened, right?
Yes.
Do you feel bad about not volunteering that to Danny's parents?
I feel a sense of relief that now I was able to tell everybody what finally happened.
Yesterday. Almost 10 years later, right?
Yeah.
And that's because you didn't just know a big piece of it. You were a big piece of it, weren't you, Doctor?
I was extorted and I knew a lot, yeah.
Is the state prepared to give its closing?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
May it please the court. The defendant didn't pull the trigger, but that doesn't mean he isn't just as responsible as the person who did. And despite the defense's efforts to characterize their client as the real victim here, Dan Markell remains the only victim in this case. The only thing he was guilty of is fighting like hell for those kids. And he lost. He didn't lose in court, but he lost. I mean, the defendant is smart. And they had over a year to carefully plan this murder with the goal of not getting caught. But don't let the way the defendant thought he would get away with this be the reason he gets away with it. As long as you keep your mouth shut, you can get away with murder. Well, fortunately for us, the defendant didn't take his own advice. He did take the witness stand. He did offer statements, and you are able to assess his credibility as part of your determination of this case. This defendant is guilty of first-degree murder, if ever anyone has been.
Mr. Rauschbaum, you may give the defense's closing.
You don't have to like Charlie Adelson. There are plenty of reasons not to like him. That doesn't make him a murderer. Now, this hitman joke, we learned that Charlie made it with people he hardly knew. That he made it repeatedly. Ask yourselves, does it make any sense for a guy who is about to do a hit, about to murder someone, to go around town and advertise it? Doesn't fit. Reasonable doubt. The puzzle pieces do not fit. He did not participate in the murder of Professor Markell. He didn't do it. He didn't conspire to do it. He didn't solicit it. There is only one just verdict in this case. Count 1, not guilty. Count 2, not guilty. Count 3, not guilty. End this nightmare. Send him home. Thank you, Your Honor.
The jury was just sent out to deliberate Charlie Adelson's fate.
And they came back 3 hours later with a verdict.
Madam Clerk, please publish the verdict.
You're always worried. This guy is a dentist, a periodontist. He went to college, and that could sway a jury, so you never know.
We, the jury, find as follows as to count 1 of the indictment. First-degree murder. The defendant is guilty of first-degree murder. Count 2. The defendant is guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. Count 3. The defendant is guilty of solicitation to commit first-degree murder.
It's like beyond, it's unbelievable. And it's, of course, a confirmation of the reality that the family did it.
Mr. Adelson, I'm going to give you the opportunity to make a statement if you wish. You do not have to speak. However, this is your opportunity if you choose to do so.
I did. I would just like to say that I maintain my innocence.
With the jury having found you guilty of all 3 counts that you were charged with in your indictment, you are sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of release or parole.
It was a small sense of satisfaction to see that the investigators' work was rewarded. Yes, it took years, but it's still a matter of finding justice for Professor Markell and his family and his parents, and that we weren't finished with the investigation, and we knew it would go further.
Hello, this is a prepaid collect call from
Charlie,
an incarcerated individual at the Leon County Jail.
The jury of my peers was not there.
Days after Adelson's conviction, detectives listened to phone calls with his mother, Donna, planning her future beyond the reach of American law.
Could things change if there is extradition from Vietnam? Because we've looked at all the places. I mean, I could go to Korea and China, but there's no extradition. But we're looking for places where there's no extradition.
The next day, Donna Adelson and her husband Harvey checked in for a flight to Vietnam with one-way tickets. Harvey Adelson was not charged. Donna is scheduled to go on trial for the murder of Dan Markell in late 2024. She has pleaded not guilty.